Hello, everyone. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Maverick Pallack on the other side, and that's Tony Farmer. I'm at Levi's. They're not, but we're all 49ers, and we're at a round table virtually, and we're going to talk about the game that's coming up for the next 45 minutes or so. It starts at 5:25. First topic for you guys is, should this game even be happening tonight, or should the NFL have postponed it? Who wants to go first?
I can jump in on that. Okay, yeah. It's a little unfair to the 49ers, but I think we all knew coming into this season stuff like this was going to happen and could come up. So I'm okay with it. What I'm not okay with is it seems like there was false positives with Kendrick Bourne's case. And he tested positive, and then he tested negative. It seems to be a false positive. So my bigger issue is, why isn't Kendrick Bourne allowed to play, more so than the issue of, is the game being played on Thursday?
I think it's pretty plain and simple that the game shouldn't have been played for a Thursday. They should have delayed it to Sunday, in my opinion. I don't know if necessarily canceled, but if they delayed it to Thursday, I think the 5 days would have matched up. And a lot of these guys that are affected by the false positive would have been in there. And I think that's a big issue. But the NFL has a lot of times protected their money investment. They moved the Raiders off Sunday Night Football a couple weeks ago to protect the integrity, I think was the word, of Sunday Night Football. And so I think they need to protect the integrity of Thursday Night Football. Everyone has their own opinions of that event as a whole. So I think that's what's happening here as well.
So is there integrity in Thursday Night Football? I think the whole nature of Thursday Night Football is that there's no integrity in the league and that they're trying to make as much money as possible. And when you look at it that way, it's no surprise that they wouldn't cancel this game, because the entire reason this game is happening is because the NFL is a greedy, money-grubbing organization, which I love because it provides a living for me in a way. I don't work for the NFL. So look, coming to Tony's point real quick, the false positive. What Adam Schefter seemed to say is that there has been like 110 something cases of someone testing positive, then testing negative. And that in all but 4 of those cases, when they get retested the second time, they test positive again. So there wasn't enough time for Kendrick Bourne to do the retest. And they're just going by probability that he most likely didn't have a false positive based on the other evidence, but no one really knows. And he could wake up tomorrow, get tested again, be totally fine. And if this game had been moved back to Saturday, he could have played. So I guess it's kind of like the Niners' problem. Maybe they should just invest in better tests, because I think Jeff Wilson Jr. had a false positive too.
I mean, I don't know how far down this rabbit hole we want to go. Why can't you just administer like 4 tests at once? Swab, swab, swab. And if all 4 come back as negative this time, why wait a day to see if it switches back to positive? I feel like if all 4 of your tests that you did on the same spot are all tested as negative, you're probably negative.
Well, Tony, they probably should hire you, because that's the smartest thing I've heard, and I don't understand why they're not doing that.
I got a C in biology, so I'm gonna tap out on this one for the next couple minutes.
Yeah, I didn't take science in college either. I took a class on black holes and a class on dinosaurs, which was harder than you thought. It's just looking at fossils. I mean, okay, let's move on. Give me one reason the Niners won't get absolutely mollywopped tonight, or will they?
I think there's a good chance they do. If you want me to take the 49ers angle and make an argument for them, it's coaching. They're a better coach team. The 49ers have owned the Packers. The 49ers head coach was a disciple of Shanahan, and he has shown that he's got his number. The 49ers, Shanahan has certain players on the Packers numbers. They're linebackers he's made look silly the last couple of years. So if the Niners win this game, it's going to be because they slowed the game down with their run game. They shortened the game, kept the ball out of Rodgers' hands. They're not going to be able to win the game in a shootout. The 49ers are not going to be able to – Nick Mullins is not throwing for 400 yards tonight. He's got no receivers. And so that's the way the Niners do it. That's their path to victory, since we're in the political season right now. Shortening this game. And it's shortening this game, keeping the ball out of Rodgers' hands, and praying for the best, really.
That's why I think, in a weird way, the wide receiver deficiency today could help the 49ers because it is forcing Shanahan to run the ball. They cannot throw the ball 36 times like they have been trying to do, I think, in recent weeks of let's get the quarterback going, let's throw the ball, let's try and compete with Russell Wilson, let's get out of our game plan. I think they have to run the ball to win. That's what they did against Green Bay last year when Raheem Mostert ran all over them. And although JaMychal Hasty is not Raheem Mostert, at least in the explosive department, that could help them, especially with more tight ends on the field. We saw what Deebo Samuel and Kendrick Bourne did last year, run blocking. I thought they both had insanely great run blocking games against the Packers in the NFC Championship. And I think Dwelly and Jordan Reed and Charlie Warner can do the same thing.
Yeah, the only way the Niners don't get mollywopped is if they control the game with their running game, as you guys said. The best defense for Aaron Rodgers is keeping him on the sideline. Make him one-dimensional. It doesn't look like they're going to have much of a run game, even though Aaron Jones is active. He may not have much of a role. I'm actually kind of bullish on the defense because their kryptonite is a big physical wide receiver and a quarterback who can scramble. Aaron Rodgers isn't scrambling around as much anymore, and Devontae Adams is a hell of a wide receiver, but he's not DK Metcalf in terms of size. And I actually think Emmanuel Mosley and Jason Verrett can match up. Because Emmanuel Mosley was on DK Metcalf last week. He just got punked at the catch point. I mean, by a guy who was about 40 pounds bigger than him. Devontae Adams may do that once or twice, but we saw Emmanuel Mosley cover him last year and do a pretty good job. So I think the Niners defense is still pretty good and can match up well. And this run game, if Austin Walter can do something, him and JaMychal Hasty, I don't have much hope for Tugboat McKinnon. You formerly Jet McKinnon, now he's Tugboat McKinnon. I don't think you want to give him 12, 15 carries, but throwing to him, he's a decent receiver. So, yeah, that's the only path to victory. Do you notice that John King never sleeps? Whenever you turn on CNN, he's in front of that screen. It's like, dude, they must be paying you overtime.
That's you. Every time I look at my notifications, I see you're live on Facebook or something.
I'm the John King of YouTube. He needs a nap. Who must have a good game for the Niners to pull off this 7-point upset?
I'd say that Hasty definitely. I think no one's really denying that, but I'd say that Justin Scuor has to have a good game because if Zadarius Smith takes over, then that could be 2 turnovers right there. That could be 2 forced fumbles, sacks, strip sacks, and that's an easy at least 6 points for the Packers. So I'd say Justin Scuor is probably the most important thing. And if Justin Scuor plays well in this game, that could open up a lot of cap space next season. That could make him feel a lot more comfortable with Trent Williams out there. I'm not saying Scuor will do that necessarily, but I think if he does play well, that's a big thing for next season.
Not saying he will, not saying he won't. Tony, I like that.
I'm going to punk you guys and say Mitch Wishnowsky, but I'm going to go with Jordan Reed. I think in the red zone, he's their only threat. Maybe a couple of the running backs, maybe catching the ball, but Trent Taylor's okay. He's not really a established red zone target. And so I think in order to win this game, they're going to have to score a few touchdowns instead of field goals. And when you get into the 15, 10-yard line, when you're inside that red zone, Jordan Reed's the guy. And if he scores 2 or 3 touchdowns, they got a chance.
Good answers. I was going to say Nick Mullins, but I honestly don't think Nick Mullins has to have a quote-unquote good game to win this game. I think they got to run the ball. What he has to do is not have a bad game. He can't do what he did last time he started for the Niners. He can't do that. No 2 picks, no pick 6, no fumble. Just manage the game and take your shots when they're there. I think the guy who has to have a good game is Kyle Shanahan. Because when Kyle Shanahan is on, he can win with Nick Mullins. He can win with Jordan Reed, Ross Dwelly, and it kind of doesn't matter how many injuries he's had. Like, we've seen Robert Saleh work around injuries to about 8 starters and still have his defense playing well. I think we need to see that from Kyle Shanahan too, but I think he has it in him. I wouldn't expect him to win with Brian Hoyer or CJ Beathard. He competed with those two, but he really never won. But with Nick Mullins, I think he can win. And if you're going to lean on your run game and play and, basically have the best of Kyle Shanahan, we know what that looks like. It's not what it was against the Dolphins or Eagles, but when he's at his best, I think it almost doesn't matter who he has. And now look who it is. Look who it is. Quick, before we move on to the next topic, Niner Nick Newman, who must have a good game tonight for the 49ers to win?
I don't know what you guys said, but there's only one crystal clear answer to me, Nick Mullins. How could this team have a successful night without Nick Mullins? He needs to step up, lead this team to victory. If he does not perform, there's no shot. No shot.
Okay, cool. I just said you're wrong, but it's a good answer. It's a good answer.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
What was your answer?
I said that Nick Mullins he can't be bad. He doesn't have to be great. He can't be what he was against the Eagles. I went with Kyle Shanahan. I want Kyle Shanahan to set up everyone for success. And I think Kyle Shanahan is so good that he can win with these amount of backups, just like Robert Saleh does. So, hey, no, good answer, Nick. And I'm glad that you slid in before we got too deep into this.
I appreciate you having me on.
Sorry you couldn't wait. It's just we got a deadline.
Accepting me late. I know.
You know what I'm saying?
Going from point A, point B, all over the place.
Point C
today.
mixed in. All right.
Hey, Dan, let me ask you this real quick. On the Mullins piece, what team has more offensive talent? What Nick Mullins has to work with tonight, or in 2018, toward the end of the season when Mullins was putting up 400-yard games?
Well, he did have Kittle back then, but he also was throwing to Dante Pettis and not Garcon. He was throwing to Dante Pettis and Marquise Goodwin with no Ross Dwelly. I mean, you could argue that maybe it's about the same now.
Yeah,
about the same. Maybe even better if you like Jordan Reed, you like Ross Dwelly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, interesting thing to think about. He's done more with less. Who will lead this team in catches today? Nick, start with you.
Ooh, JaMychal Hasty. JaMychal Hasty out of the backfield. I see him having not just a lot of action on clear rundowns, but also taking a load off of Jerick McKinnon's plate as a pass catching back out of the backfield. I like to see Hasty get 5-6 targets today. I think the leading receiver is only going to have 4 or 5 catches. I see Hasty playing enough to reach that total. There's just not a lot of threats out there to really haul in anything more than that. Maybe Jordan Reed, he may be on a pitch count tonight, so I'm going to go with JaMychal Hasty.
Okay.
I was going to say Hasty. If I've got to pick someone else, I guess Trent Taylor in the slot. I mean, he hasn't really done much this season. Trent Taylor, if you don't put up 6 or 7 catches tonight, you are sending a message. This is your night to shine. This is your opportunity tonight.
Sure is. Maverick.
So I talked a little bit yesterday about River Craycraft, and I think this is a chance for Craycraft or Richie James on those jet motion sweep type things. I think James takes on that Debo role where he catches a lot behind the line. But I'll go Craycraft with 3 or 4 catches. I think leads the team, honestly.
I'm going with Jordan Reed. I know he's coming off a 5-week layoff, and maybe he's not smart to do that. And if they do throw him back out there, he might get hurt again. And the Niners have really had a bad pattern of rushing guys back and leaning on him too much and breaking them. But I think they're going to stick with what they do, and they're going to rush Jordan Reed back in this game. I think he's playing primarily because so many guys are out, and they're going to get him the ball early and often, and he's going to have a really good game until I'm not going to say it. So I'm thinking Jordan Reed is going to get the ball. It's your time, Jordan. We'll see. Either that, but I'm hoping it's Ross Dwelly, because I actually have a Ross Dwelly jersey on underneath my. Do you think the Niners regret the Dante Pettis trade, considering they're at the Kevin White, River Craycraft level right now?
I'd say it was just time to move on for both parties, and it wasn't working out. And who's to say the way they were using Pettis, and at the time, we weren't even really sure about Jimmy, but fully on Nick Mullins in, that might hurt him a little not having Pettis. But I'd say that the 49ers are better off without Pettis. Pettis is better off without the 49ers. And we'll see what Kevin White can do.
Right.
You say we're at the Kevin White level, but there were times this year where I questioned if Pettis was above Kevin White or not on the depth chart. And so I honestly think the 49ers season is done. I think they know their season is done. And if they were in a situation where they had to win games, maybe they might regret it a little because he's got experience in the system. And you're not going to guys like Craycraft, but I don't think they're too worried about it. I think, honestly, there's probably a little relief in that front office that you got rid of a guy. You can finally have some closure and turn the chapter on a mistake.
I agree with Maverick and Tony. It's best for Dante Pettis to get away from Santa Clara, start fresh, it was best for the 49ers just to rip off the Band-Aid when the writing has been on the wall for so long. Kevin White, Dante Pettis is better than Kevin White. People are so quick to hate on Dante Pettis because he hasn't really done much over the course of the last year and a half. Kevin White has done nothing his entire career. He's caught 0 touchdown passes. If Dante Pettis is a bust, which he is, Kevin White's like a ginormous bust. I can't even think of a way to phrase it, but the Bears drafted him so early on in the draft, and while Dante Pettis was a second-round pick. But are they going to miss him this game? Maybe. And if this COVID stuff were to break out or on Tuesday when Dante Pettis was cut, maybe they don't even end up releasing him. So it's probably a blessing in disguise that he got cut when he did, moved on, because they probably wouldn't have if the COVID stuff happened the day they released him.
I just feel like they never gave him a chance to redeem himself as a receiver. Like, he never had it as a returner, but he got one target this year. It was a deep target. It wasn't a great throw. He didn't make a great effort on it. All I know is that when they released him, he went to waivers, and he got swooped up so fast. I mean, one of the top teams took him, and if they didn't take him, another team would have taken him. No one wants Kevin White. No one wants River Craycraft. Like, anyone can have him. Like, they've been on the practice squad. Like, the Giants could have had Kevin White, and they were like, nah, you take Kevin White, but if you cut Dante Pettis, it would seem like a lot of organizations wanted him. So clearly the Niners know Dante Pettis better than these teams do, but they better be right. Because if it was some personal thing between Kyle and Dante that just turned Dante off and he goes on to have a good career with the Giants while the Niners are calling up River Craycraft, I mean, it'll just look so silly. Okay, let's move on to the Quan Alexander trade. I haven't talked to you guys since they made that trade. Do you agree with that trade? What do you make of trading Quan Alexander 2 weeks before you play the team you're sending him to?
I like the decision from the lens of it being a business. It was the smart business move to get that contract off the books. You have Dre Greenlaw, who has really emerged over the last year and a half, and that's really what made Quan Alexander expendable. To me, the contract that he received in the first place coming off a major injury was very questionable right off the bat. He had a solid year and a half with the 49ers, accomplished a lot, really meant a lot to the team in the locker room. Kyle Shanahan said it was a hard thing for him to do was tell Quan Alexander that they traded him. I think it was the right decision through the lens of it being a business, like I said earlier. So I'm okay with it. It's going to help the team out cap-wise moving forward. And they have a clear replacement or someone who's ready to step up in Greenlaw who is equal or the superior player. So it's a no-brainer, honestly.
Yeah, I like it financially. You know, it's funny looking on 49ers Twitter. You always see people saying the 49ers should sign this guy. They should sign this guy. They had no money. They were up against the cap. Literally, if their kicker or punter got hurt, they could not have signed a kicker or punter without being over the cap. They were that pressed for money, and this creates some relief, not just for this year if they do have an emergency situation like that, but for next year. And we've talked before about how important next year is going to be with that reduced salary cap. Like Quan, like him as a personality, I think he's going to be missed in the locker room, but financially and business-wise, this was absolutely the best decision. And you get a 5th-round pick out of it. So that's gravy on top.
It reminds me a lot about an NBA trade where you have a center that is worth too much money. You made a mistake. You trade him to another team for a center on an expiring contract. Essentially the same thing with Kiko Alonso. You get that guy. He's going to clear up. You get that draft pick. But also the Saints are an NFC competitor. And if 49er fans' opinion of Quan Alexander is that low, they just traded a guy that a lot of people think is not a good tackler to a team that has to stop the run against them for the next couple of years. And that could be another thing is Quan Alexander is going to have to make plays for the Saints, and we'll see if he can get healthy and right his tackling problem, because he was very talented last year before the injuries, but the tackling is not great right now, and he needs to improve that. That's why he was a 5th, and that's why the Niners had to get rid of him.
Yeah, well, he's not worth his contract. It frees up money. He's probably not even as good as Dre Greenlaw. So in that sense, it's a good move. The only thing I wonder is that the fact that they were willing to trade Quan Alexander to the Saints 2 weeks before they played the Saints. I mean, Quan Alexander knows the Niners offense very well and the Niners defense very well. So you'd have to imagine there's a fair amount of intel that he can give the Saints, and the Niners must not care, which makes you wonder How sold out are they to win this season? Are they sold out to make the playoffs, or would it be nice to make the playoffs, or are they kind of just packing it in and playing a bunch of backups and moving on to next year? What do you guys think?
I don't think necessarily they're moving on to next year. I said yesterday, even if they lose out, I still don't think they get any of those quarterbacks. I know a lot of people want those guys, but I think there's 10 teams that might not get to 5 wins. I think the Niners are definitely getting to 5. There's a lot of bad teams out there.
Yeah, you're right.
Also, why would they all just decide to not play? Robert Saleh is probably playing coaching for a head coaching job next year. A lot of these players are coaching to be on the team next year, not be cut. The only people that would quote unquote be playing for next year would be Shanahan. I don't see why he would do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure some of them are packing it in mentally. They're not going to admit it, and some aren't. I'll tell you what, though, they should pack it in. They should keep an eye on the future. Let's look back to 2018. Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt for the year. Jerick McKinnon gets hurt for the year. The 49ers are in a mess. And what came out of that, besides getting Nick Bosa, which has been well covered in the media, the 49ers discovered Kendrick Bourne that year. He led the team as far as the wide receivers and snap counts that year. They found out that this unproven Kendrick Bourne guy was serviceable and had value. They essentially discovered DJ Jones that year. They discovered Ronald Blair that year. Those guys got increased snap counts. Those were young, unproven guys. And I look on the 49ers roster now and I wonder, who are those guys that kind of fit that profile that you might not start, you might not play if you're fighting for the playoffs, but let's see what they've got, I see a guy like McKivitz, so they're probably not planning on starting this year. Why not throw the guy in there for a game or two and see what he's got, so that next year going into next season, he actually has some starting experience. Hasty is an obvious example of that. Feed that guy. Let's not be signing any more veterans for the rest of the year. Let's see what we've got on our roster with these young, unproven players, and see if we can find any more diamonds in the rough. The season's over, guys. They're 4-4. I know there's an extra playoff spot, but the season is over. They're way too banged up to overcome this. So let's start thinking ahead. That's what I think they should do.
My personal take, I don't know what they're going to do if they're packing it in. Kyle Shanahan does not strike me as a coach that's just going to stop putting forth the same sort of preparation and effort into his game planning. These are professional athletes. They want to win. They don't want to be on a losing team. Whether they make the playoffs and if they can make noise in the playoffs shouldn't take away from the fact that that should not be what they're striving for. They should absolutely strive to make the playoffs. This team, after the bye week, can get healthy, get Raheem Mostert back, who I believe has been the MVP of the offense. You can get Deebo Samuel back. That's your identity right there. As popular as George Kittle is, the 49ers were at their best with Raheem Mostert and Deebo Samuel. Those are two guys you can get back after the bye week. If you escape the Saints and the Packers with a 1-1 record, you split, you're 5-5, you have a chance to get right back in the conversation against the Bears and the Rams. Those are the two teams you're really competing with for that 7th spot. And if the 49ers can do that, why would you not go for it? You can still build a lot of momentum going into next season by making the playoffs. You don't need to get that top 12 draft pick. What's the big difference between picking 12th and 21st if they were to go one and done in the playoffs? I think this team should still continue to make the playoffs. You just don't give up with 8 games left to be played. That's my personal take on it.
It's interesting what Tony said referencing 2018 when they did go 4-12. And when things got bad, it got real bad. But the way I remember 2018 and the way I look at Kyle Shanahan's entire time with the Niners is he doesn't pack it in. Even when they were losing frequently, they were competitive, and in hindsight, they were losing because their quarterbacks were C.J. Beathard and Brian Hoyer, 2 guys who shouldn't have been in the league. The fact that the Niners could have competed with those 2 quarterbacks is amazing. And the fact that they lost all but 1 game that they started isn't surprising. Then in 2018, they bring in Nick Mullins for the final 8 games, kind of like this year, where Mullins going to get the final 8 games, and 23-year-old Mullins, fresh off the practice squad with really no seasoning, on a bad team, goes 3-5. Now he's 2 years later. He's got a better team around him. Now he's banged up. The team's banged up today, but as Nick said, Mostert's coming back, Deebo's coming back, Ayuk's coming back. I think he can do better than 3-5. I think he can do 4-4. I think he might be able to do 5-3. And, with Kyle Shanahan and calling the shots, as long as CJ Beathard isn't at quarterback, I wouldn't put it past him. And I would like to see a head coach who's making $10, $11, $12 million a year to do what Mike Tomlin did last year. They lost Ben Roethlisberger. They were playing Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges. They found a way to win 8 games. And although it didn't set them up for the draft, it set them up for the next year. Now, the Niners won't have Ben Roethlisberger coming in next year, but it does make it easier to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo if Kyle Shanahan can show ownership and fans, look, I can win without Jimmy. Because right now, it's not clear that he can. We all know the numbers. His record with Jimmy's great. His record without Jimmy's terrible. So if he can go 5-3 down the stretch with Nick Mullins, make the playoffs, I don't think anyone really thinks they're going to go anywhere in the playoffs. But I think it makes you look at this franchise differently. Like, they've built a culture that can sustain adversity. Like, I don't want to see a few injuries and then they're back to 4-12. Because now you're looking at Kyle Shanahan. Well, are you a one-off? You had one winning season in 4 years. Now, you've had a lot of injuries, and that's true. But I would hate to see him pack it in. And I understand what Tony's saying. It's kind of a basketball mentality. In basketball, you do not play for 41 and 41. You're either good or you're bad. In football, it's a war game. You got to go out there and put your body on the line. I don't like the idea of the coach not being sold out to win or someone not being – you're either there to win or you're not. So I hope they're sold out, and I'd like to see him win tonight. I don't know why I'd like to see him win tonight. This would be a good story. I don't know why.
One thing on the playoffs, though, just thinking, like, Nick, you were talking a little about trying to catch the Bears and the Rams, but if they can beat the Packers or the Saints, those are also teams they're chasing, and they would have important tiebreakers over pretty much every team ahead of them. They play, besides the Bears, they play every single team ahead of them, the Bears and the Bucks, obviously, but they can get a lot of important tiebreakers if they win the right games for the rest of the year. And I think we've established they can beat the Rams by running the ball. Who knows what the Cardinals are going to be like? I think they're a very hot and cold team. Obviously, they are probably a better roster right now just because they're healthier, but they're hot and cold. Who knows what happened? Nick Mullins, remember, he looked pretty good against Seattle this year and the last time he played them too. There's a lot of question marks that I'm not saying they're going to beat the Seahawks, but that can still be answered through the next 8 weeks.
And the reason why I think it's somewhat realistic that this team sneaks into the playoffs, last year, the 9-7 Rams would have been that 7th seed. Let's say the 49ers and Rams, if they beat the Rams coming off the bye week, they're 2-0. They have any sort of tie-breaking advantage over them. Looking ahead a step further, week 17, let's say the Seahawks already clinched the number 1 seed in the NFC, or if they clinch the division, you might get a freebie there as you're going to play Geno Smith. That's way down the line, but that's kind of why I don't think the playoffs are completely out of the question. And George Kittle, 8-week injury, 8 weeks from now is January. Maybe he's back for the playoffs and everybody's singing a different tune. So I'm not shutting the door on this season.
Okay. Pick a winner tonight. Who's winning tonight and why?
I'll start. I'm going to stay consistent with what I've been saying. Looking at this game, comparing the two rosters, comparing the stats, it makes no sense for the 49ers to win this game. It shouldn't happen. The only reason it would happen is because it's the NFL. Anything can happen any given 60 minutes. But I like the Packers in this one. How could you not? You have Aaron Rodgers going against Nick Mullins, and that's really what it boils down to me. You have a Hall of Fame quarterback against an undrafted talent, which is not a knock on Mullins. I'm just saying when you compare the two rosters, it makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense for the 49ers to win this game, but they very well could. It's a possibility. It's the NFL. I hope they win. My brain just does not see how it's logical that they win.
Yeah, I think we want to say the 49ers are going to win because they looked so good against the Rams when they were depleted, but they're way more depleted in this game than they were that game. And so I like the Packers by 7 or more in this game.
Mm-hmm.
See, yesterday I was very positive the 49ers were going to win, kind of like Kendrick Bourne. And today I am now not positive like Kendrick Bourne. And although that whole issue is up for debate, I think the Niners can still win just because I don't think the Packers are that good besides Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. Aaron Jones is probably going to be on a pitch count. The 49ers already have a good run defense anyways, but the Packers are the 29th ranked DVOA defense. That's bad. So even though the Niners have 3 tight ends and a bunch of practice squad receivers and a practice squad running back and 6th round left tackle or whatever Justin Scuor was, I still think they have the matchup advantage over the Packers defense. It just depends on how Aaron Rodgers does. But if the Niners run the ball and control the tempo, Aaron Rodgers can't do much more than a couple scores. So I'm picking the Niners, but Aaron Rodgers will probably throw for 500 yards and make me look dumb. So it'll all work out.
I know. We all have so much conviction in our predictions. Look, the Niners are decimated, but the Packers are too. The Niners don't have their left tackle, neither do the Packers. The Niners don't have their wide receivers. The Packers don't have their running backs. I mean, Aaron Jones is supposed to play, but we'll see about that. It seems to me the Packers are a one-dimensional offense without a left tackle. The Niners are a balanced offense without a left tackle. The Niners should be able to run the ball in this game no matter who the running back is. If it's Austin freaking Walter, if it's Kyle Juszczyk, they should be able to run the ball in this game. I don't really think much of the Packers defense. They can't stop the run. They have one good cornerback. Basically, the Packers are three players. They are Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Jair Alexander, and Aaron Jones when he's healthy. I don't know. I think the Niners, the thing about the Niners, I've always preferred their backups and their starters anyway. I'm always team backup with the Niners. Every time the next man up, I'm like, well, finally. I mean, how long did it hurt the Niners that Kevin Givens get a shot? No. Is it going to hurt the Niners that Ross Dwelly's going to get some targets? No. Is it going to hurt the Niners that Nick Mullins is playing? We'll see. I don't think so. But I kind of like the idea of the JV squad on the Niners. I'm team JV anyway. So I'm sticking with the Niners by 3. And I don't know. I just have this bad feeling that after the game it's going to be like, Packers 43, Niners 6. Gee, Grant, how come you didn't see that coming? Huh? No, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to put that out there. I want to guys, thank you. What's up?
Oh, I was just going to say the Packers Nick Mullins has 2 starts this year. They're both against teams that don't blitz. The Packers also don't blitz. So let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens.
And remember, there was that Monday night game I think it was C.J. Beathard that started, and he had a long touchdown bomb to Marquise Goodwin. That 49ers team was arguably no better than what they're putting on the field, if at all better than what they're putting on the field tonight. So anything's possible. That went right down to the wire. And I'm trying to think of who the cornerback was that was getting picked on in that game on the final drive. Who was it?
Greg Mabin.
Oh, Greg Navin. That's right. Greg Navin. So who knows? This game could, as long as the 49ers keep it close, I'm hoping for a close competitive football game. I don't want to have to sit through another Miami Dolphins or 3/4 of the Seahawks game. That'd be catastrophic.
Here. All right, guys. I got to go run up to the press box and get a sandwich. Sit down. Thanks so much, guys. This was a good show. I'll be back after the game, and I will see you guys later this week. Take care.
Take care.